Damaging winds, large hail, and tornadoes, perhaps even a strong tornado, is going to be possible today in the northeast. So, in today's video, I will break down what your area could expect in terms of severe weather and why this setup is so interesting. Starting off with the day 1 SPC outlook, we do actually have a level 2 out of 5 slight risk in effect extending from Maine back into Pennsylvania, where we could see some damaging winds, large hail, and even some tornadoes. Storm Prediction Center has decided to implement a 5% tornado risk today. And we have a pretty large 2% surrounding that, anywhere from eastern Pennsylvania back up through New York into Maine. So we're watching that closely. We do have a 15% wind risk, although I would not be surprised if we got a small hatched risk right back there, just off the latest model trends. And here's our hail risk. Primarily our hail threat is going to be coming across this area, I think, when storms initially fire. But as they progress to the east, the hail threat is going to go down and the wind and tornado risk is going to go up. We do not have a severe risk tomorrow or Monday, thankfully, but let's just focus on getting through today. Here's the HRRR for today, and we do have some ongoing convection, but here within the next 1, 2, 3, 4, so in about 4 hours, so around 1 p.m., we're going to see some storms start to fire, and these are going to go up very fast across that area, and whenever they do, once they kind of cluster together, it's going to bring that more of our damaging wind risk. But if we could get a discrete storm or two, or maybe here on the back end, if we could get a little mesoform, we could definitely see a strong tornado. Then we're going to see some more storms fire back here in Virginia and West Virginia and race to the northeast. And here's where we have to watch a bit of a elevated tornado threat as they push for New York. So we're watching that closely. You can tell here some pretty intense storms near Long Island, and we just kind of have a very elongated area of storms pushing to the east, southeast, and these just are continuing to pose problems, damaging winds, large hail, tornadoes. So we're definitely watching this closely. If we go and look at surface-based CAPE, actually, that's another thing that we have to look. How much storm fuel we have. Although there's not a ton of it, we do have a decent amount across a very wide area. So we're watching it closely, as if storms get in that environment, they're going to be bad. And here's a look at the significant tornado parameter values. Although they're not very high, there's going to be that period that we need to be watching across this area, as we definitely could see a few tornadoes today. Here's just a look at shear in the low levels. As these storms are pushing through, we are going to have a decent amount of shear to work with, which could help to rotate those storms. So we're definitely watching that closely. And with a lot of shear, we can also see a pretty potent damaging wind risk. So we definitely need to keep a very close eye on that. Here's a sounding off the HRRR. This is taken in eastern New York. So tornado possible hazard type, a decent totograph, decent storm slinky, 2,200 CAPE. DCAPE is only 451. So there are areas that are lacking, but there's also areas that look pretty good. And here's a look at the NAM 3KM CONUS, and it's kind of shows more of that damaging wind risk. As you can tell, a pretty potent damaging wind bag it does look. So will today be a damaging wind driven risk? For the most part, although we do have that 5% tornado risk in play today. And honestly, a upgrade to an enhanced risk across this area, I would not entirely rule it out. Here's just a look at surface-based CAPE here. You can tell there's a bit more, and it's across a pretty large area. It's a bit higher, and there's a lot more of it. So we definitely need to keep an eye on that, because if this were the scenario that could come true, we're definitely looking at wind gusts that could be up to around 80 miles an hour. And here's the SIG TOR values, and you can tell here, we're going to see a bit of a elevated time period here around eastern New York. So watching it pretty closely, is a live stream may be warranted this afternoon. And here are the severe threats. And if I go ahead and zoom these in a little bit more, right there, you can tell here, majority of the Northeast. I have put our tornado risk at a 5 today, so that it got bumped up from a 4 to a 5 since last night. Our wind gusts have been bumped up from a 6 to a 7, nearing a 8. And our hail and flooding has remained the same. Not only are we watching severe weather, we're also watching the tropics too. We do have Hurricane Kiko, major hurricane, Category 4 right now. Does look to miss Hawaii now. So we're watching very closely. Luckily, though, this does not look to take a track like this. It does look to take the track like this. Although I do actually think it's going to pull a bit further to the north and miss all of the Hawaiian Islands. Here's just a look at the GFS. And you can tell misses all the island and then dies out because all that cold water. And here are all the spaghetti models. You can tell almost every single spaghetti model has it missing Hawaii. Apart from this one, has it going through the Big Island. But guess what? One is just one scenario compared to like the hundreds of scenarios. So, is this going to happen? More than likely not, but it's still a very, very low chance. And our chances have been on the decrease in our MDR, our main development region. If you don't know what that means, we now have a 30% chance of development in the next 48 hours and in the next week. And this has been eaten up by dry air. We have had a ton of dry air just rushing down into our storm, and it's been limiting its development. And although there's still a low chance it develops, it is not going to last very far if it does. Here's just a look at the GFS. Here's our system currently, and you can tell it struggles to develop and nothing really happens. Although I am kind of watching back here in the Gulf as we move into next week. That is something that needs to be watched right there. Maybe a low-end tropical storm forms inside the Gulf. Plus, we do have a few tropical waves that are starting to come off again. Now, like we just saw, we had a 90% chance yesterday of this developing, down to 30. So we just need to watch these closely. And here's the Euro, and it's showing that same scenario, struggles to develop. As we move towards the 14th here, we don't really get that wave in the Gulf that we were watching, although you can tell it does try and spin up. So we're definitely watching this area closely, like we always are in this time of the year. But we also kind of have to watch the Gulf, as we can actually get systems that do occasionally spin up in here. So we're going to keep an eye on it, but just make sure you stay tuned, and just make sure you have your hurricane action plan in place in case something does happen. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you guys did enjoy today's video, please consider dropping a like and subscribing down below, as it really helps the channel and it spreads the word to more people. So with that, this is going to be the end of today's video. Make sure you turn all notifications on so you get notified if and when we do go live. See you guys in the next one.